Hello, my name is Shari Irwin. I'm the Program Coordinator here at Queensland Theatre Company and self-proclaimed Chief Eco-Geek at QTC. Today, Lisa Erhardt has asked me to talk to you about the Greener Life Performance's Green Theatre Workbook, which is a tool that QTC are using to help us make one of our school's touring shows, the Lost Property Rules, into a sustainable production and a sustainable tour. So just a few quick stats about the show. It's produced by QTC, there are no other co-producers. This project is for 8-year-olds and 12-year-olds, so primary school age children and their families. The production has 6 performances here in Brisbane at the Bill Brown Studio before it goes on a regional tour of Queensland. Now, why did I choose this show to apply to become a sustainable production? And I guess the first reason is so many of the parameters of the show, being a school's touring show, already meant that a lot of the inherent savings and things that you would do to save money and to be more sustainable are already part of the production build. So for example, the show is going into classrooms around Queensland, so there are no theatrical lights going to be touring with this show. It's going to be performed under, fluoro lights in a classroom, so there's already a cost saving there. The production necessarily needs to fit into a van. It needs to be lightweight because the 3 performers have to be able to set it up in 30 minutes and pack it down in 30 minutes. So as you can see, these practical things are already saving a lot of time, saving a lot of money. So that made a lot of sense when it came to choosing a project that we were going to produce sustainably. Also, it had a very, very tiny budget, so we didn't have a lot of money to spend in the first place. So if there was going to be a project where we wanted to save money, it made sense to pick a project that already didn't have a lot of money to spend in the first place. This challenges us and allows us to think outside the square and to really be as resourceful as possible. And best of all, and this was probably more of a coincidence than by design, but the actual themes of the play, The Lost Property Rules, align really nicely with the ideas of recycling and reusing. The story is about 2 sisters who run away from home and they get stranded on a train platform late at night and they have to hide in a lost property box, which is a bit scary. And so what they do to pass the time and to overcome their fear is to use the old objects that have been discarded, and they give these objects new stories and new purposes. And obviously that's a really beautiful tie-in with the themes of recycling and reusing and revaluing things that we've forgotten in the past. So that's lovely. Might not work for every show, but it worked really well for this. So what did I do first? The very first thing I did was consult with people, but that's a really lame, boring word. What I did was just share my idea, my passion with everyone who had a stake in this project. So the first person was obviously the head honcho of QTC, Wesley Enoch, our artistic director. I gave him my ideas. I said, here's why it would work. Here's why I think this project is the right fit. Here's how easy it's going to be. And he, of course, agreed absolutely on one proviso, and it was that the artistic goals of the project had to be the first priority. And of course, that was absolutely what I wanted as well. As long as the sustainability aspects were not going to be a hindrance to the artistic vision of the piece, then he had no qualms in pursuing this idea. So that was fantastic. I met with the director and designer who happened to be the same person on this project, Lucas Stibbard, and he felt the same way. I guess happily Lucas as an artist actually has a design aesthetic or an aesthetic to all his work that tends to lean towards the vintage, the salvage, the reused. He has a very sparse theatrical style, so it already fit with the type of art that Lucas already makes. So of course he was on board as well, which was fantastic. And then I met with everyone within the company to bring them on board and say, look, here's what I'm thinking, what are your ideas? So it wasn't so much, oh, well, here are the rules now, but here's the idea, and do you have your own ideas to contribute to this and take ownership of it? The cast were included in this, and Lucas talked to them about the sustainability aspect of the show, because we want their input. They have to own it as well. After I've talked to everybody and found out that everyone was on board, there was actually really no one who went, no, that's a dumb idea. Everyone was really passionate. That was when I actually started using the Greener Life Performance Green Theatre Workbook, which is an Excel document with lots of little tabs that basically break down all the elements of the production. All I did was, I'm actually still doing it, we're still in the process of building the show, is fill in the questions, answer the questions that the worksheet gives me. So for example, there are questions about transport and touring. Are we going to use a vehicle that is diesel or LPG as opposed to a petrol? If we have to fly our cast from one end of Queensland to another, have we made sure that we budget for flight offsets? Is there a different way to do this? Things like accommodation. Are we putting our actors up in the cheapest hotel, or is there a hotel of comparable price that actually has their own sustainability program, and they recycle, or they use rainwater, those sorts of things. Trying to use those services instead of just what we've always done. Lighting and sound I've already talked about. It's not really an issue because we're performing in schools. Things like rehearsals. Is it possible to get the actors to rehearse with iPads instead of printed scripts? Some of these things we won't know until we actually try them, but it's good to at least ask the question. Sets and costumes. This has probably been the part of the process I've been most happy with. Lucas had all these ideas for what he wanted the set to look like. Instead of going out and buying brand new things, he looked at QTC's props and furniture store and found 90% of what he wanted to use for the set already sitting in our storage. So the only real thing that needs to be made new is actually just to reinforce some of the furniture to make sure it's strong enough and durable to tour. But a huge component of the set didn't have to be bought and is actually being reused from the collection that we already have. Same goes for costumes. There might be a small make in base costumes, but even then, the materials that we're using, we're hoping are sustainable materials, that they're going to be materials that are suitable to be laundered in a safe way. Marketing and ticketing, obviously a huge push for online marketing and Facebook as well, to involve people in that way. If we're making printed materials, can we do it on recycled paper? Can we do it with soy-based inks? These are all questions, but at least we're asking them as we go, as opposed to, I think what normally happens is we go, well, this is how we've always done it. And I don't think, what this workbook has been great for is at every step of the process of making a show, when we get to an answer that's, oh, well, we've always just done it that way, this workbook makes you stop and go, why? What's the benefit of doing it that way? If there's a clear benefit, then great, keep that process. But if there's a better way to do it, let's try that, or at least ask the question. So I think that's what the real benefit has been. This show comes with being a show for kids. We have post-show activities where the kids can colour in or do activities after the show. In the past, it's generally been colouring in or storybooking. What we'd like to do is actually give these post-show activities a sustainability focus as well. So instead of just a colouring in group after the show, we might ask the kids to bring in lost property of their own from home, or recycled bits, bottle lids, toilet paper rolls, whatever. They bring that, or the school collects it for them, and then they might actually build a creature. There's a creature in the play called the Quiz Diplomaton, which is a magical creature. The kids could make that out of recycled materials. So that theme of sustainability of recycling can be brought out into post-show activities. So that's another fun part, and we're brainstorming that now. The other great thing about the workbook is that it lets you measure everything you do. We do this all the time, and yet we actually really don't measure what we do very well. So this is a forced way of measuring. And if we measure something, it means we can compare it. So we had a tour, three-person tour that toured schools last year in 2012. Once we finish this 2013 tour, we'll be able to look at those figures, compare it to last year, and actually see how much money we saved, how much carbon emissions we saved, and actually really know how well we're doing. Of course, there's partners and sponsorship. When I spoke to our corporate partnerships person here at QTC, her eyes lit up because suddenly what she was just selling to partners as like a kids show now also had a sustainability element, which meant that the range of partners she could approach for money and sponsorship was so much larger. So it helps in other ways. The workbook is still a work in progress, so I am testing it, and I believe Nicholas Payne at Laboite is testing it as well. So as we go, we're adding suggestions. For us, we needed a whole other page for props because we have a lot of props, and each of those things need to be measured. There's other things that the workbook, hopefully in other versions, will capture. Things like particularly the online marketing and the Facebook engagement. I love the idea of us travelling to different schools, taking photos of the creatures that these kids make after the show out of recycled materials, posting those photos on Facebook so that even after your school has seen the show, you can still keep up to date with the tour and see the other photos that the other kids have added throughout the tour. So it's those sorts of things that hopefully the workbook can also capture is more marketing and audience development as well. Ambitions. I have massive ambitions. I would love to see this type of approach spread to main stage programming. That gets harder because there's co-producers and everyone has their own agendas and priorities, but ideally this is where this model should go. This workbook should be used for main stage productions one fine day. I hope this little project could win something like the WWF Earth Hour awards for a creative arts project. So there are lots of awards we could put this project into, which will again raise the profile of the company and show that we're really committed to sustainability. I would love, I guess, if we can do it this time, then our next schools touring show can can follow the same model. If we've set a precedent once, it's a lot harder to go back to the old lazy ways when you show that you can do it the right way. So I hope that this is something that can continue forevermore. And obviously to share all our measuring and our case studies and our pitfalls with the rest of the industry, to be able to share with the industry what we found difficult, what worked really well, and so that everyone starts producing more sustainably. That is ultimately, a great thing and something I hope we can do. So I guess what I've talked about is not really revolutionary. People have done it before. What the workbook has been great for is that it does mean that every decision we come to is accountable, and it means instead of just doing it because we've always done it that way, we're now doing it because we know there's a good reason, many good reasons, and one of those reasons is because it's a sustainable practice. And I do think that being conscious as a company, as individuals, of even the smallest improvement is something that will inspire us to continue improving and ultimately get better and better in the future. So thank you very, very much for your time. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback about the workbook and about any other ideas that you think we can include in it. It's been fantastic working with Live Performance Australia on this project, and I can't wait to see how it grows. Thanks very much.